Want to know what it was like to be behind the camera during the 2015 Arizona Cardinals season? Want to know what 2022 Hard Knocks In season is going to be like? Steve Trout, senior director from NFL Films, joins me for 2 segments. Buckle up.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Really excited to get this guy in here. He was front row for the 13-3 season in 2015 for the Arizona Cardinals, directing All or Nothing. He's going to be in charge of directing the Hard Knocks In season coming up here in 2022. Man, I am so excited to get this guy in here. Steve Trout, director, NFL Films. Thanks for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
You got it, man. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So there have been 3 years in recent memory of the Arizona Cardinals that were really memorable. The Super Bowl run with Larry Fitzgerald and Kurt Warner, 2015, and last year for different reasons. Tell me what the front row seat in 2015 was like when you were directing All or Nothing that was focusing on the Arizona Cardinals.
I can tell you right now, and I've answered this question. I've been at film since 2004, so we're looking at 18, 19 years. And people say, what's my favorite moment? And I say, hands down, that Packers game in the playoffs. I'm on the sideline. We've got about 8 crews there. Steve Kime and Mr. Bidwell come down to the sideline because game's in hand. And Rodgers goes back-to-back Hail Marys to send into overtime. And then you've got the Carson to Larry back-to-back, the deep run after the catch, and then the shovel pass. That atmosphere in that stadium to this day gives me chills, is the greatest moment in my 19 years in the NFL.
Were you surprised that the Cardinals were as successful as they were in 2015?
Yeah, look, this whole idea, we've done Hard Knocks in August since 2001, right? That's become a staple, and that's become appointment viewing. The holy grail for forever has been try and follow a team the entire season, not just preseason, the entire season, to the point where back in 67, Steve Sable, my old boss, late boss, was shooting practice for Lombardi's Packers, and he runs out of film. It's film, of course. We're talking 50 some odd years ago. So he starts packing up the camera. Lombardi walks over and says, no lie, Steve, what are you doing? And Steve goes, well, coach, we're out of film. I'm leaving. He goes, the hell you are. You stay right there and pretend to shoot my guys because they practice better when they know they're being watched. So that started. We actually filmed with the Packers that entire year, 67. So that was the first time we did it. Second time we did it, we had a camera with Belichick for the entire season. I forget what year it was. That was the first of our Football Live documentaries. And we've been trying for so long. And so back in summer 15, Mr. Bidwell was open to it. This is a man who likes to take risks. He runs a transparent franchise. He said, sure, let's try it. So we had no idea what we were doing. And they start winning. And they're a good football team. And it's this whole building an airplane in flight analogy where, look, as it went, so did we. We were there when the coaches got there. We were there when the coaches left. And we enjoyed that airplane ride. It was amazing, not knowing what the next turn would be. The ending was pretty tragic for all of us because we kind of emotionally invested in it. But that season was a monumental season in the sports TV universe. It won the Emmy that year. For a show in its first year to win an Emmy is very rare. And that kind of set us on this path now of these in-season All or Nothing and now Hard Knocks shows.
Senior director, NFL Films, Steve Trout, been watching film for a long time. Was lucky enough to stumble upon, 2015, as you mentioned, building an airplane in flight. I want to ask you this before we get to the 2022 Arizona Cardinals. Okay. What you have in store now is also something that's fairly new. I mean, the Colts were last year. This is a new-ish, iteration of NFL Films and Hard Knocks. On paper, which team jumps off the page more? You've got the seasoned vets in 2015. You've got David Johnson rising, but not really to the point of stardom yet, like which team jumps off the pages more to you?
Well, don't forget, we're talking May 31st. You don't know anything about a team right now. We didn't know anything about David Johnson at this point in 15. Mm-hmm. We knew about Carson. We knew about Larry. You knew about those guys. Carson's story was so awesome coming off a second injury. But we're too early now to really kind of compare an apples to apples in a way to 2022. And so you don't know who that David Johnson's going to be at all. And I love Kyler Murray. I love his story. So I'm so fascinated to peel back the layers of the onion on Kyler and some of these guys. JJ, we know. He was in part of Texans Hard Knocks just for August. But the goal of this show is to peel some layers back so we're getting deeper than any other show does. You'll know better than anyone. If we come out of this with simply a football show or a highlight show, I failed. This has to be a character show. You've got to invest in these guys. And so I love your question, but the best answer is I don't know. It's just too early.
Damn it, Steve. I need to know. Like, that's my job every day on this damn podcast, is to know or to project to know. Thank you for not bailing me out. Steve Trout, NFL Films, one of the best in the business. He's been around Hard Knocks for a long time. He's been around All or Nothing for a long time. Coming up next, I want to ask him what you hope to see out of this team during in season. What was it like last year? And what do you think the ceiling is for Kyler Murray? I want to frame it that way. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, coming up next. First, Built Bar. The ceiling is through the roof for Built Bar, and they're going healthier, even more so than they already have, with Built Bar granola. Built Bar granola has 3 unbelievable flavors: chicken, chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, white chocolate berry. I talk about Built Bar more than I should on the show. I talk about it when I don't have live reads because I have my cabinet right there full of them because I don't like making breakfast. Okay. These things have 16 grams of protein. They have 4 grams of sugar. What more do you want? 6 bites. You're ready to roll with your coffee. Go to built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your first order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right. Round 2, Steve Trout, Senior Director, NFL Films, joining me here, Alex Clancy on Locked On Cardinals. We talked All or Nothing. Man, I have 2 friends that were at the stadium, and they've been lifelong Cardinals fans. And, I've lived in Phoenix for 12 years, so I haven't really seen the rise through Sun Devil Stadium and then in State Farm Stadium. I haven't put in the reps. Let's put it that way for being a Cardinals fan and then experiencing something like that. The shovel pass to Larry Fitzgerald, giving him his moment in such a Bruce Arians way to do. My friend said it was the loudest they've ever heard any arena, let alone State Farm Stadium. So you being front row as a football fan, where does that rank before we go into in season here? Where does that rank for you? You've been around football for a long time. Is that a top 5 moment that you've experienced?
I'm not lying. It is not top 5. It is the number 1. People have asked me, even not Arizona shows, people have asked me what's my favorite memory of 18, 19 years being in films. Hands down, it's being on that stage, being on that field for those. Really, it's 4 plays. It's Aaron's back-to-back Hail Marys to tie it up. I'm standing not 5 feet from GM Steve Keim and Mr. Bidwell. I've got about 8 crews, including 1 shooting their live reaction to Rodgers back-to-back Hail Marys. Then the play to Larry. And I'm hearing, I can listen to Carson's wire, NBA's wire in my ears. So I watch Carson go across the field and just super calmly takes a sip of water. And what do you think about whatever play call was to Bruce? And Bruce pauses. I mean, it is deafening. Bruce pauses, goes, yeah. Carson walks back on, calls the greatest play call, both sneaky, just a perfect play call, and the place erupts. You see grown men, professionals like Steve Keim and Mr. Michael Bidwell lose their mind. And then being on that field and then being able to be in the locker room and being able to tell that story in that second to last episode that year, the greatest experience of my career at Films.
That's awesome. Steve Trout, NFL Films. I mean, I could listen to you talk all day about this. So pivoting to 2022, obviously 2021 didn't end the way that people had expected. A lot of national media members didn't ever see the Cardinals as a 7-0 and 10-2 team. It was a kind of, it's not if, it's when things are going to kind of fall off the rails. And it happened. DeAndre Hopkins went out, things like that. DeAndre Hopkins suspension obviously is going to be a storyline for 2022. When you go into something like this, you said it's too early to see, and I get that. I mean, I gave you crap for it, but I get it. When does the prep work start for storylines, or do they come to you? It's like, okay, Kyler Murray versus the Cardinals. We'll see what happens with that. Obviously, that's early. DeAndre Hopkins coming back in week 6. We'll see what happens with that. The rookies, etc. Are there storylines that are kind of already picked out loosely in pencil on a piece of paper for what we're going to see? Or is it really choose your own adventure? You let them kind of lead the way?
Well, no, it's a combination of both. There are, of course, some storylines we're going to want to know what happens. Like the way that the model works is, our first episode this year will be week 9 or week 10. And there's one every single episode from week 9 till 18, and then an extra episode per playoff week. So the first 8 weeks, we're just kind of building background. We're shooting a day or two a week. And what makes this incarnation so unique is it airs in real time. So when you watch episode 1, week 9, it's covering that week. Yeah, we'll catch you up in that first 5 or 10 minutes as to how they got to week 9, but it's real time. So of course, some of the obvious stars about, Kyler and Hopkins and JJ. Yeah, of course we're going to follow those guys. But what's so neat about this roller coaster ride is someone's going to come out of here, a David Johnson, if you will, or, that we have no idea who it is, who's going to be a major character in this 9-week docuseries. A 9-week story arc is so unique to have. Hard Knocks in August is 5 weeks, and it's all about who makes the team. Here, it's about the main characters, both floors of that facility in Tempe, about showing the real struggles of an NFL season from the inside out, both as football players and coaches and front office personnel, and as dads and as wives and as moms and brothers and sons. So, to answer your question, I think it's half and half. We know, of course, some storylines we're going to follow, but we can't wait for those new ones to surface.
I'm going to give my little instance, just being around the team, interviewing some guys. Like, I'm not in the locker room every day for practice or anything, but it's, I've been around and I've gone to games, interviewed guys. Buda Baker is a guy that fascinates me more than any. Really, and I talked about this on the podcast yesterday. Mental toughness is a huge thing that the Cardinals need to, elevate, starting with Cliff, going on into the players. And I think Buda Baker is somebody you can set and forget because, every single week, every day at practice, everything, he's going to be the guy. And he just happens to be one of the better interviews. He's got that, he's got that kiddish smile, and he's an absolute missile. Is he somebody that you're looking at like, oh yeah, I'm really excited to get some background and follow him for a handful of weeks? Absolutely.
Because the other big thing is the G word. He's genuine.
Yeah.
When I talk to teams, through the Hard Knocks and all these and say, here's what to expect. And, you're going to forget we're there by day 2, day 3. They snicker and laugh. But every damn time they forget we're there by day 2 and day 3. And I say, look, if you start hamming up the camera, we're walking away. We don't want that. This has to live as a genuine, real look at an NFL season. And guys like Buddha are the ones who are going to take you there. And that's why I just get so excited about the shows like this, because we've opened doors that have never been opened before because of the trust we have, being NFL films and our experience, that we are able to tell the real story. And if it's not the real story, then that's reason number 2 that I feel. It can't be a football film and it can't be fake.
It's badass. Steve Trout, NFL film senior director. One last question. You can say no comment. First of all, do you have creative control over which team is picked? And can you tell me who potentially like the 1 or 2 finalists were that weren't picked?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Teams are not forced at all. In fact, we started talking to the Cardinals earlier this year. I was at owners meetings back in March, and that's where we talked to them at length about it. And Mr. Bidwell is as genuine and real as a human being and an owner as there is. He runs a transparent organization. He's willing to take risks, and he wants to do these kind of things, not for the attention. He's not going to be, of course he'll be a part of it, but it's not all about him. You need to find owners like that. You want to find young teams. You want to find teams with exciting players. It all just kind of landed right there in your hometown, perfect storm with the Cardinals. And yeah, there were other teams, but no, I will not go into those teams.
Well, what the hell am I got to ask.
Because next year they will go right back and ask them.
That's a good point.
And I'm telling you what the league saw with the Colts series is we're not a distraction. Don't forget the Colts started 1-4. We didn't start filming until after that. They win 6 of 7 while we're there, and of course they lose the last 2. So I get the end of that, and but going 6-1 with our cameras there every day was a very powerful statement to the rest of the league.
Yeah, hear that? Ain't going to be a distraction. Steve Trout, NFL Films, Senior Director, All or Nothing first segment, what we could potentially see Hard Knocks in season second segment. Thank you so much for joining me, man. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Alex.
Man, great stuff from Steve Trout, Senior Director from NFL Films. He's seen some things. He said his number one moment in person was that exchange at the end of the playoff game between the Packers and the Cardinals at State Farm Stadium. That's wild. Coming up next, I'm going to break down everything that he just said. He's so smart. Could have had him on for another hour. We'll talk about that next. Locked On Cardinals first. BetOnline.net. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Like basketball, finals, Celtics, underdogs. Are they going to win? All the lines you need. BetOnline.net. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's, I just mentioned, basketball playoffs. Major League Baseball. I wish baseball was my favorite sport. I say this from time to time. It's your favorite team playing every single day for 6 months. Could it get better? BetOnline.net will help you make it better. There's fights all the time, and even next season's NFL futures, which are wild. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Go to the website or use your mobile device to find out the trends, find out where all the action is. BetOnline, where the game starts. Final segment, Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Numbers are going up. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking. Thanks for subscribing. Tell your friends. I'm back to premiering the videos at 10 a.m. Pacific time every day instead of doing it the night before. It got a little too convoluted, and just same day, all the content on the same day. We're entering the off season for a couple weeks, so there's a chance I might be going down to 4 podcasts a week. But I like doing 5. There's always stuff to talk about, so why the hell wait a day? You know what I mean? I mean, what Steve Trout just ran through for us was like inside the mind of a dude that's been at the forefront of some of the most compelling, award-winning football docuseries that we've seen. From the beginning at Hard Knocks through the All or Nothing years, like the dude's seen some stuff. And it's interesting, like, because I talk about this from time to time. The 2015 roster definitely wasn't as sexy as what the Cardinals have now. That doesn't equate to anything. I'm just saying, like, star power, I feel like the Cardinals now have more star power. The 2015 roster was deeper, more veteran laden. And I mean, Carson Palmer, obviously, I talked about this a couple days ago, that the Cardinals need Kyler Murray and his maturity and his mental toughness to, elevate this team this year. And God, going back to our podcast yesterday, mental toughness is so important. That's what the Cardinals had with Kurt Warner, even though he was a turnover machine for a lot of his career, won 2 Super Bowls, went to New York, turnover machine, won some games, then Eli Manning, and then, he came here and took the Cardinals to a Super Bowl, one of the more exciting times offensively for the Cardinals organization since its inception. And then 2015, same thing. Carson Palmer comes in, already a very well-seasoned vet, off 2 injuries, comes in and just does something that, come on, people didn't really expect that from Carson Palmer. I mean, he was an ACL. He was a roll-up, I think, by a Pittsburgh Steeler, a roll-up from potentially winning a Super Bowl in Cincinnati with that offensive just firepower. I don't know. Firehouse? What's the opposite of a dumpster fire? What's the good version of a dumpster fire? Doesn't matter. And now Kyler Murray's, he's in the driver's seat. And with the infusion of these leaders that are so young now, that are so ready to play, it's kind of a different learning curve. It's kind of a different steepness of the learning curve with expectations so early, which isn't necessarily fair. And I talk about this a lot, but that step needs to be taken soon if the Cardinals want to win now. If the Cardinals want to win a playoff game, if they want to sustain a full 17-game slate and not just start 10-2 and sputter out when one player on the offense gets hurt. And sure, Rodney Hudson missed a couple games. I understand that it wasn't perfect last year, but no NFL season is perfect. People get injured. I say that flippantly. Obviously, you don't want anybody to ever get injured, but it'll be really interesting to see what happens during the Hard Knocks in season 2022 after week 7 when the Cardinals are in the spotlight. And I can't wait to see it. So thank you, Steve Trout, NFL Films Senior Director, for joining me for 2 segments. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.